Inside Fusion 360, there is a really good rendering tool that said it's totally different for those of you used to 3ds Max or Maya or even Inventor. Where Inventor has a great rendering capability, Fusion 360 again has this great tool that was really not built for the expert renderer. It's not for someone who knows how to properly build lighting and camera positions, focal lengths and all that. Fusion 360 was built for the person who just wants to create a really cool image, or an image that will draw in investors or just allow someone else to understand and to visualize what it is they're trying to create. It works great. It takes advantage of the large library of appearance overrides. The scene settings are based on HDRI, so you're not just having to set up all the lighting and all the scene settings. You're not having to build all that. You're just able to take advantage of environmental lighting. You can add lights. You can also take advantage of decal. Decal's a great tool for putting on there. It's dead easy to do. Also, there is a texture map control. If you take a look at the image on the right that was done in Fusion 360, and by the way, I think that's a really great image, there are third-party add-ons such as Keyshot. If people want to go even more high-end, but the tools are really nice, there are also two separate rendering engines or two separate rendering capabilities. One is the render tool, which is really nice as you can use your local hardware, or this is fantastic for customers or students that don't have strong computers. You can use the cloud to do the rendering, and it's just built in. The other rendering tool is in Canvas Rendering. And to be totally honest, I'm not a rendering expert, so I frequently use in Canvas Rendering, if for no other reason than to set up my other renderings. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a demonstration. We're going to look at a model that's already been done, and we're going to play about with some of the settings and just really show the various capabilities of Fusion. And again, it's one of those that once you know where to go, it's a case of having a play and finding, you know, your own best techniques. So we go back into Fusion again. Because I save my model, it's actually saving it on closing. If I now go out, see, I'm remembering now to go into this tool. If I go into visualization and rendering, and what I want to do is load up the blue one. So the visualization and rendering one in the blue. In fact, I've actually loaded up the wrong one. That's the finished one. I'll load up the unfinished one. I think that's a better way to show you. So we look at this model. There's notice we're still in the sculpt environment. There are two different ways of looking at it. If I right-click in the canvas, so if I right-click here, I have the capability to add physical material and appearance and go on to the texture map control. So if I went into appearance, I get a pop-up box. Sorry, it's come on the other screen. And this tells us all the different materials that are already, or finishes that are already within this model. I've got here a wealth of libraries. So whether it's glass, metal, plastic. So in plastic there, I've got opaque, texture, translucent. Open these up. If I want any of these, so let's say I want this, I don't know, plastic one, bring it across. Now you'll notice that it's up at the top here, it says bodies and components, it's highlighted. If I bring this across, because it's got the bodies, it'll actually drop it and put it on the full body. This is only in appearance. Undo that. All right, undo that. Right click, appearance. If I just go faces and do the same, you'll notice now it's just doing on individual faces. Now this is an appearance override. It doesn't actually change the physical material of the model. It's just how it looks on the screen. But this will start to build up in the InDesign library. So if I was to add in, let's say that metallic blue, just in that corner there, you'll notice it adds it in here, the matte blue, should I say. I can double click on this. You'll notice that that's great. Split over my screen. There we go. Move the model across a bit. Double click on that. And what this allows us to do, this is an override. So we can change by grabbing. Yeah, we can change, and you'll notice the actual model itself as I'm dragging along. It changes within the model. And anywhere that I'd had this material selected to, it would change there as well. So there's a lot I can do in there. I can go to advanced. When I go in advanced, I've got a lot more options. Again, I'm not an expert with all this, but you can see there you've got very emissive products. We'll have a look at that later on. Got relief patterns, cutouts, advanced highlights. There's a lot you can do in there and apply to the model. Now what I'd like to do while I'm in here is if I just get the hard rubber. So somewhere there's a hard rubber. There we go, this hard rubber. I'm just going to drop and put it on there and drop it on that one. So I've got a nice hard rubber there. It looks okay, but I'd like to make a few changes. If I double click on that in the menu, from here you can now access the material and make adjustments to it. So maybe I want it a little bit lighter. So in here, yeah, I can actually change the lightness of it. So I can actually scroll down, see that, how it's changing the lightness. Also, I can go into advanced and I'll select add bump map. So if I double click on that, again, go to advanced, this time, if I go bump map there and open it up, this brings me to my folder. Now these will all be shared with you. The access to the folders for like the logo, the saw, the background. This grip bump map is an image that's been taken off Google. If I open it, it's now put it in, and you'll notice now that it's, let me just open this a little bit higher so you can see it. We've got our image in there. You can change the scale and rotation of it. So as we're looking at our bump map now, if we, let me find where it is, somewhere. I said it's in the actual image itself. So whilst we're in here, we can change the scale of it, the offset, the rotation. So if I want it at 90 degrees, oh sorry, let's put it in there. So we can actually change there we go, as we modify it now, we can change that. The angle of the bump map. We can change the scale of it if we want to do. We can highlight it. So you can get a really good sort of effect. And it's right easy to create some materials and build out the visualization of this model. So that there's quite a bit of stuff that you can do here. So let's, if I was to change that to 50. There you go. Yep. Let's scaled it up. There. Again, it's something you can really just play about with. I could spend hours and hours, so I don't want to spend hours and hours, but I'm just showing you how you can do it. And again, you just apply. I cancel out of that. We've now got that bitmap on there. Let's have a little fun. I'm going to click on the other library. There are a few different libraries here. So while we're here now, libraries. Yep. You can, sorry, whilst we're in here, I may as well mention it to you. We've got Fusion 360 library. You can create your own and include them in there. And if you've got some favorites or ones that you're always using all the time, you can actually place them into the library themselves. So you've got access to be able to create your own series of libraries for the products and the materials that you're using on a regular front. What we've also got, if I was to look in here in the libraries, let's go back to the Fusion appearances. This time I'm just going to go to Other. And you can see we've got quite a wide range. You've got emissive. So if you wanted to add something that was emitting light, you've got the possibility of adding, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just add if I move around here, let's make this light here. I'm going to just drop that onto this. Let's drop it onto, in fact, let's change that to bodies, components, and we can select all of the switch. Move, there we go. So that now switch there will be an emissive LED light. If I want to go into it, you can see now I've got a different selection. I've got roughness, I've got how bright, luminance it will be. So I can change that. Also, so I've just set that light up there. So later on when we do a little bit of rendering, you'll see how it affects it. I'm going to go to wood as well. So let's go to, I'll scroll back out. By the way, if you've got one of these like arrows pointing down, that means that it's not currently in your library to use, but you can download the materials into your library. So if you're after a specific material that's got an arrow down, if you click on it, it will download it into your library. If I go into wood, solid wood, let's go to let's have a look, and finished. Let's go to finished, and I don't know, walnut glossy. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put walnut glossy, and I'm going to drop it on that component there, that safety switch there. Now what you will notice, if I zoom in, you can see how the grain follows the end. So if I'm looking on this side, you see that the grains are following down, but as they actually go round, you're getting that end grain effect across there, which I think is really sort of cool how it looks. If I close the appearance dialog box and then click on the canvas and go to texture map, so let me close this. If I then click on here, right click, and then go to texture map controls, what I can do now is select the switch body. I then get these manipulators on, manipulator handles. And what it allows me to do is drag these around. So if you now actually start looking, now you'll see my grain moving along around, so I can position my grain. I can zoom in and zoom out. So again, using the same manipulator handles, I can zoom into the grain and zoom out of the grain. I can change the angle, so I can spin it round. And you see, it's just a real cool feature within there, which is just standard within Fusion. But it's just knowing where the tools are, how you can access them. There you go, spin it around and change it around there. And again, you can play about with it, and you can get a whole series of different effects that are on there. If I want to change the scale overrides, I'd go back to the appearance dialog box, select the finish I want and edit it, and go through the different options. I think these effects are great and already are adding to the appearance of the model, and we haven't even started the render tool yet. So if you look at this, we haven't even started the render. And all right, I've still got, I'll tell you what we'll do. What I'm going to do now is just change, leave that around there. See, I can actually build this up as we're going along. Let's just dig in a few things whilst we're in the appearance box with Fusion 360. So let me open it up again. Appearance box. In Fusion 360, we have a range of different selection types. Again, we've got the bodies, got the faces, so we can apply. If I wanted to apply this particular opaque to that body, I'm going to keep the rest of the faces. I've just moved that there. And already it's looking pretty good. If I want to just do it to that face, Again, change it to faces and then just apply individual faces as I'm going along. So very quickly I can build up, how my model is looking there, just on this side, and I have to do the same on the opposite side, obviously. So depending on the type of models, or the type of body, we can simply select by selecting faces, edges. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the render workspace. So let's go into the render workspace. So we're going to scope now, because we're not actually in the render workspace at the minute. We've just set up appearances and go to render. Now already this is actually come up as it was originally set up. As we move in, there's some standard views that already start, which are built in Inherit, that are based with the drawing. You'll notice that there's reflections, shadows. If I was to rotate this round, you'll see that we've actually got lights that are built in from the scene. So up at the top there, we've got, I think it's 9 lights coming down. So that would be built in from the environment that we've got. Moving across from left to right within our workspace here, we've got appearance. And again, just like before, the same appearance box comes up. We've got access to it in this space. As well as, we right click, we've got appearance there as well. Scene settings. I click on scene settings. We get our scene settings dialog box. And what we've got here, we've got the brightness. Now this is how bright the light is from the scene. So we can reduce it and modify it down. Position. This is if you've got a particular scene, you can change how far your model is off or through into the floor. So I can modify that. I can also change around the angle that the model is within the scene. Now, because you'll notice just around here the lights from above, because there's no back scenery, you can't actually see that changing, but you'll see them lights changing there. Environment. At the minute, we've got a background that's set to environment, which comes from the environmental library. So it's set up initially as a skylight. We could change that to rim highlights, just drag it on, drop it on, it changes. So if I was to view around now, you'll notice that my 6 lights from above have gone, and I've just got the rim highlights that comes off. And there's there's quite a number of these that are built in, but also you can download some other ones. So if you want to put it into a field or your model, but you can also attach custom ones, but they need to be the HDRI type of photograph that you can get in there if you want to do your own. We've got ground plane. We can turn it on or off. You can see there you've got reflections, non-reflections. Let me just turn that position off there. We can put it on the ground or not. We can turn reflections on or off. And then obviously we can change the roughness of the ground, so the clarity of the reflection that you're seeing in the image. Then we've got cameras, so we can change from perspective to orthographic to perspective with ortho faces. So there's a number of different options we've got there. Focal length we can change. Now this is where it starts moving out of my sort of comfort zone, as in is what I'm doing here. Depth of field we can put on, so we can change the focal point of the depth of field. We can change that on and focus on something. Environment. Where we've got the environment, we can actually change it to a solid colour and pick the colour. So if I wanted, let's just move this, okay, let's just move this over a little bit so it comes on the screen. Select the colour. If I want a red background, apply, got red background. So we can actually change and modify the background to our model. We've got solid colour. We've also got environment that we've got in there. Also decal, so we can add some decal onto our model. So if I go on to decal, all I need, I think this is really cool, because all I have to do here is select a face that I want my decal on. So if I select that face, select the image. So for this one, I'll just pick Autodesk logo, open it up, and where has it gone? Ah, there it goes. And it's on. Now, look, it's our friends, the manipulators again. So the manipulators, we can move it around, that face. We can scale it. We can move it planarly, move it up and down. We can spin it round. So we can actually put this wherever we want in there. Position it when you're happy, okay. And there you go. We've now got that image on our face there. Texture map controls, so we can actually, again, we've got access to the texture map. In canvas rendering, this is what I was talking to about setting things up. If I went in canvas rendering, what this does, this actually starts the render tool. And when it starts doing iterations. And as iterations go, it gets finer and finer, the outcome. And you can see there, it's a time elapsed, the number of iterations that it's done through the design. Excellent is when we get to this point. We can pause at any time, the iterations. The only downside for me from this, obviously using computer, using a bit of memory whilst you're doing it, but as soon as you modify your position, you can actually see here the LED, the light that's coming through from the LED. If I was to move the position of the model, it starts again. So to zoom in, zoom out, the iterations start again, turn it around. I can pause, but it will pause in that position. Pause it, come and do what you want, and then it'll start again. But depending on your model and how complex your model, how fast your machine, this is great for setting things up, because I might actually go back and reduce the brightness of that on switch if I was had time to do it. So I'll turn off the in-canvas rendering. We've got in-canvas rendering settings here. So we've got fast. So it's a quick way, or we've got an advanced where we can set things up. We can lock the view in there. Same with as we're doing it, we can lock the view to make sure that it's giving us what we want. At any point, whilst we're rendering and doing the in-canvas rendering, we can capture the image that's on the screen. Again, this image here is not a rendered image. So there's a lot of adjustment that we can do. Before we can actually do a final render, we need to remember that these exercise files are read-only. So we need to save our own version to a project. So this actually won't render or produce that final rendered image unless we've actually saved it. So we go save as, just save, and that will now allow me to actually complete my rendering. So if I go to render, the render dialog box gives me a few options. I can do a cloud render. This is where we'll use credits, or I can use a local render. We'll use local render. I can set the quality, standard or final. I've got advanced settings, so I can actually change it to excellent if I want to do. I can do it locally using my processor, or I can switch to cloud render. Now the cloud render, it will tell me how many cloud credits are required to do a particular image size, and I can just then tell it to render. Once it's done that, and it started that render of that image, I can now actually just move and modify my design. It's not going to stop this rendering that's happening here. This will just go on now in the cloud and it'll produce my rendered image. So I can now position it, change it, modify it, change my scene settings, change the colors, apply, and then do another render. So I can build up my renders, but if you're a student, you get free cloud credits. If you're an educator, you do, but if you're a commercial, you need to pay for the cloud credits. So I would only advise doing the actual cloud rendering once you're actually happy and you've got your final image that you want to do. Even if I shut down my computer, it's still, because it's doing it in the cloud, it's still going to render it. And they'll present them in a nice gallery for me. When it's done, I can create a turntable of the rendering. So hopefully, as this is like winding on, come on, it will do a, I can actually do a turntable of the rendering. Or if I've actually done a motion study on this particular reciprocating saw, I could re-render the motion study and produce a video. So only those that you've done motion studies with, once you've actually done the initial render, you can actually go into that render and ask it to re-render it as a motion study. At this moment in time, I've not actually got this set up, but I'll see if I can do a model for tomorrow that has a motion study and that we can have just show you how we can just click on it. It just gives you an option in the gallery. Yeah, so it's not just quite finished yet. It's not got that sharp image. Well, hopefully it will do shortly. But then, as you can see up here, I've just gone on it pretty quick so that I can show you the icons at least. We've got the turntable option, and if it had a motion study connected to it, you'd have the option to actually rerun the render as a motion study. Produce a nice little video. So there's a lot of flexibility. So there you go. That I can re-render it as a turntable, but it would use 5 credits, and it's telling me at the minute it'd take like 20 minutes. You can download or you can delete. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of power, and simple to use and adjust. One last thing, you can set the rendering aspect. If you find you are using these settings all the time, you can set them up as default. If you've got a standard that you want, standard setup, standard lighting scheme that you want, you can actually set it up as default in there.